Skull Rock Podcast is brought to you by the generosity of the following companies. Shure, sound extraordinary. To podcasters, recording musicians, and streamers who are looking for studio quality audio at home or on the road, the Shure MV7 Podcast Kit is a premium all-in-one solution inspired by the legendary Shure SM7B and is designed to address the versatility required by modern creators. For more on the Shure MV7 Podcast Kit, visit shure.com, SHURE.com, or click the link in our show notes. Shure, sound extraordinary. And by The Old Mill Press, publishing beautifully crafted books that illuminate our world. To learn more, visit theoldmillpress.com. And by listeners like you.
Hi, this is Alan Bodner, art director, and you're listening to Skull Rock Podcast.
Skull Rock Podcast, talking all things Disney, with your hosts Aljon Go and Dave Bossert.
Welcome to Skull Rock Podcast, the show about all things Disney and pop culture. Every week we take you behind the scenes of some of your favorite Disney films, theme park attractions, performances, books, music, as well as what's streaming, what's in theaters, and what's going on in the universe of entertainment. Hello, it's Aljon Go, musician and longtime Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, and pop culturist. And you can contact me, Aljon, ALJON, at skullrockpodcast.com.
And I'm Dave Bossert, artist, filmmaker, author, and yo-ho-ho. Welcome to the Skull Rock Podcast. If you love Disney and pop culture, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can also email me at dave@skullrockpodcast.com. Aljon.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's just been an unbelievable week. And today is the 22nd anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks on the World Trade Centers. And it's just unbelievable that it was 22 years ago. I mean, I remember exactly where I was that day and what was going on.
Same.
I mean, it was just absolutely crazy.
Same. Okay, so to make it brief, where were you and what were you doing?
You know, when the first plane hit the first tower, I was on the freeway in Los Angeles heading to my office at the Disney Studios.
Yeah.
And I was listening to Danny Bonaducci, he was a morning radio DJ in LA.
Yeah.
And for those out there, Danny Bonaducci was Danny on the Partridge Family.
Yes.
Television show. And I was listening to him, and that's when they started talking about, like, there was this horrible accident. Nobody knew at that moment that it was a terror attack, you know. And then when I got into my office, I had an AV cart in my office that had a television on it and all of that. And I popped the television on, and I watched the second plane hit the second tower. And that at that moment, you know, everybody knew that this was not an accident, that this was, you know, we were under attack at that point, you know, and it was unbelievable. And it's like those memories are seared into my mind. And by the way, at our home, we were one of the few houses on our street that had satellite TV.
Yes.
And most people on the street had cable. And the night before, somebody had broken into the cable vault in the neighborhood and stole equipment out of it. And so nobody had cable working.
Oh my goodness.
And so you know, when I called home when I got to the office, and Nancy was telling me that a bunch of neighbors had come over and were watching TV in our living room.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
So it was pretty crazy, but it's just hard to believe that not only is it 22 years, but, you know, just a few days ago, they've identified 2 more 9/11 victims.
Oh,
and
my goodness.
The first identifications in 2 years. These were DNA identifications of remains. And I mean, can you imagine that 22 years after they identified a man and a woman, and they're identified as victim 1,648th and 1,649th. victims identified so far by the medical examiner's office. And there's about 1,100 people who still remain unidentified. There was a total of 2,753 people who were essentially reported missing in Lower Manhattan after the attacks on the World Trade Center. And the death certificates were issued for all 2,753 people.
Unbelievable.
I mean, it's just shocking, that it's 22 years. It's just amazing. Where were you? Do you remember?
I do. So some of our listeners know, Dave, that we performed for the Armed Forces Entertainment and USO tours.
Yeah.
So our second tour overseas, playing in the Middle East for the USO, we were performing on the road. We leave and 9/11 happened. We were actually setting up for our very first date of the tour in, I want to say it was Camp X. I'll just call it that. It was an undisclosed location in the Middle East, and we were setting up, and the colonel brought us over to the performance hall / mess hall, and we were setting up for our show that night. And all the screens in the very back, they had a bunch of flat panel screen TVs, and everybody was eating, grabbing their lunch, and then the tower got hit, and of course CNN was on, and the base was scrambling, and we were going, what just happened? And the colonel comes over and says, son, I think we're going to have to postpone the performance tonight. And then later on he said, okay, just go ahead and let's put the equipment away. You guys are going to be staying here with us. And I think it was in Bahrain is where it was, Dave.
Yeah.
And then you're going to stay here with us. And as far as I know, the tour has been suspended indefinitely. So we stayed.
How long were you in Bahrain for?
A week and a half.
Wow.
So a week and a half.
Because there was they shut down all air traffic.
They did.
For some period of time.
Yep, they did. We ended up staying at a hotel, a nice hotel, of course, with the Marines looking after us, but we stayed in a civilian hotel, and we ended up watching the news, just devastated, had a hard time calling home. I was trying to call Kristen, my wife, who was then my girlfriend, and I said, what are you doing? Of course, she was like, what's going on? Because she works late nights and doing retail at the time. And I said, turn on the TV, and she had no idea. And they had closed the malls and everything. But yeah, I was stuck over there, and we ended up playing shows in the hotel, trying to entertain some troops and some locals at this hotel, which was nice. But it's a kind of a surreal thing to be in the Middle East when this thing happens.
Oh yeah,
scary. But it is scary. But we had some very nice people there, and so we couldn't have been in better hands with the Marines. But I'll never forget it. I mean, going back home was a complete disaster. We spent a lot of time at London Heathrow just trying to get our stuff through customs. The world had changed overnight. In so many different ways, and definitely for air travel.
Can you remember before 9/11, you could just go to the airport and just walk right down to the gate.
You can walk down to the gate. We had no problems.
There was no security, and then they put in all this haphazard tables and X-ray machines, and it was just chaotic for a while after that.
It certainly was. It was chaotic, and me, right after that, my life revolved around traveling. For the Gibson Guitar Company. And so, of course, we all did every week I was going through the TSA shuffle. But
and by the way, I will tell you that once I got to my office, I was only there for a little while before a security guard came, knocked on my door, and said, "We're closing the facility. You should go home."
Yeah,
and they closed the whole studio down that day.
How long was the studio closed for?
I think it was only for that day or two at best, before we were back to some kind of normalcy,
I'll never forget it, Dave. I mean, we were sitting there, and at the time I was a smoker with the rest of my band, and I quit smoking because I couldn't handle it anymore. It was just ridiculous. It was
mm.
just like, it was too much. It was stressful, and I was like, all of us were sitting there having coffee and reading the newspaper and watching TV in the hotel lobby. And it's like, I can't handle it. I'm going to quit cold turkey.
Good for you.
That was it.
Well, hey, listen, I want to say that we have part 4 of a 5-part interview, because next week we're going to have part 5, and that's it with Dave Spafford. I mean, we're talking everything today, from him going on from Who Framed Roger Rabbit onto The Little Mermaid. He talks about The Little Mermaid, and then also talks about how he's set up Spaf Animation. He talks about that a little bit. And next week we're going to get into, more of Spaf Animation and the parties, that his infamous parties at his Friday night parties at his house, how those came about, and some hair-raising stories with the police visiting. So we're looking forward to all of that. But today it's going to be part 5, and I can't wait for us to get to it.
Absolutely. In the meantime, once again, leave us those great emails as well. I mean, I know that there's been a lot of chatter about our shows with Dave Spafford online. And what I love about it is that we decided to make these shows completely uncensored. That way people can check out the exactly what Dave's talking about. And I believe it just lends itself to the authenticity of the storytelling.
Yeah, and the thing I'm going to say about the guests we have on our show is that they're telling their stories through their lens, through their viewpoints. And Dave is no different, and certainly Dave is a wild man. There's no question about it. He's an excitable guy, and he's a great storyteller. And so, I think we're at the beginning of this part 4, we're going to touch on a little of that controversy that popped up on social media after part 2. So anyway,
controversy.
stay tuned to that.
You know what they say, Dave? Controversy creates cash. Doesn't it? It really does.
They also say funny is money.
Oh yeah, funny is money. Well, that definitely having Dave on for this unprecedented 5 weeks in a row is going to be insane. So, what have you been watching this week, Dave?
Well, Aljon, I went to see in the movies Gran Turismo.
Okay, we talked about this video game race movie.
And I said it wasn't high on my list, but I went to see it, and I love this movie. This was a great film.
Nice.
And now, if you're a racing fan, like I am, and I've been to some Formula One races, and I've watched Indy races on television and whatnot. If you're a fan of racing, you definitely want to go see this in the theater. You want to see this on a big screen because they do a fantastic job. There's a great cast here. Orlando Bloom, David Harbour from Stranger Things is in this. It is absolutely, without a doubt, a really feel-good movie. Okay. Yeah. I put this in the camp with, remember Rudy?
Yes.
Great.
It's probably the quintessential
sports movie.
Yeah, it's
right?
like the quintessential feel-good sports movie. Rudy and like Rocky, those are the kind of
and Friday Night Lights.
Sure.
I put it in that category.
Blindside, kind of like that.
Yeah, exactly. I put it in that category. This is just a very uplifting film where the underdog really wins at the end. And,
okay, so more.
By the way, it's based on a true story.
Okay, so this is more Rudy than Days of Thunder, then.
Oh, absolutely, without question.
All right, and definitely not Talladega Nights.
and by the way, just a great cast. Right. I highly recommend this film. See it in the theaters because the racing sequences are fantastic.
Okay,
and the real kid who becomes the race driver from doing the PlayStation Gran Turismo game and advances to actually racing real cars. he's the stunt double for the kid that plays him in the movie, and he does all the driving.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
What a
So
story.
it's a really terrific movie, really a great feel-good film. Highly recommend it.
Love it.
Aside from that, I did catch up with Ahsoka on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
I'm all caught up on that. I'm enjoying it. I actually am liking it. There was that big reveal, that surprise moment at the end of episode 4.
Certainly.
I won't spoil it for anybody,
Certainly.
but that's really terrific.
As Hayden Christensen had said before in the prequels, this is where the fun begins.
There you go. And then on Amazon Prime, I watched a few episodes of a show called Chelsea Detective. And it's just a British detective procedural.
Okay.
And then I finished watching the 3rd season. There's only 3 seasons of Hinterland, which takes place in Wales.
Gotcha.
And, this is a little bit slower police drama, a little bit more cerebral, but I will tell you that there is an arc across all 3 seasons that gets tied up in the last episode of season 3, and it's actually incredible.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. I love the cinematography. I love the location. And for me, I recommend it. It's not going to be for everybody because it is a slower, more thoughtful kind of a show.
Right.
So I just want to put that out there for everybody.
Cool.
That's what I've been watching. What have you been watching?
Well, this week, I too, it's been a slow week, but I too got caught up on Ahsoka. I think this is the best episode to date. And the series for me is doing great. So I continue to support it and look forward to more great Star Wars. I also,
by the way, I did want to mention too, in that 4th episode that I watched, I really like the fact that there's that Asian actor, and I don't know his name, but he's the X fighter, X-wing fighter,
the X-wing fighter, pilot,
and he's been in all of these shows.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Nick Fury. He's kind of like, I guess he's the kind of thread that kind of goes between the Mandalorian and Ahsoka, and he's everywhere.
Like this familiar face.
Yep.
He's always in the seat of an X fighter.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I just love that. I love seeing some of those characters crossing over between these multiple shows.
Oh yeah. I think he is great. Now, the funny thing about this character of his is that he is, he started as just a fan, I believe, and then ended up being so good that they gave him a regular role. And
is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to look for it now for Ahsoka, but anyway, it'll come to me. It'll come to me. But anyway, yeah, wonderful character actor, and it's nice to see them kind of inhabiting the space and kind of being the thread for all of these shows, which is nice.
I mean, it's subtle, but he's recognizable. And he's always in the same, spacecraft.
Yep.
And to have him, be that link between these different shows and movies is really, I think, very smart of them.
Yeah, I think so too. And so I also ended up seeing a show called Night Night movie on Amazon. And this is a kind of a thriller movie.
I was going to say, is this a horror movie?
Kind of. It's more of a thriller. After waking up from a horrific car accident, April must find a way to work through her trauma and a will to survive a recovery from hell. And it's one of those interesting. It's trying to be like an M. Night Shyamalan movie with a twist. I would say the highlights for this is definitely the lead, Brianna Domenico, who was in the Descendants from Disney. She is in this. Taylor Gray as well. So there's a couple known actors, but here's the thing. On there is Tony Todd. Tony Todd has played so many iconic roles in horror like the Candyman, and then also Eric Roberts is in here, but they're on them listed as cast. I'm like, well, certainly it's going to be a good movie. Eric Roberts and Tony Todd's in it. They play like very small roles in it. So I felt
Eric Roberts
yeah.
is like the hardest working actor in Hollywood.
Yes.
He's in everything.
He's literally in everything. If you look on Eric Roberts' IMDb page, it's literally like he's in 20 films every year. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
but,
and it may be just a small role, but he's there.
I know, it's a face you don't forget. And he of course has great, these actors could learn a thing or two, because every scene where Tony Todd is in or Eric Roberts in, they just literally have that gravitas. Their magnetism just engulfs the camera. So I feel sorry for other actors that have to be in there with them because they're so good, even though they're in there for like 2 minutes. But all in all, I was disappointed because I feel like the plot was okay, but ultimately the twist was kind of convoluted. So it got in the way of itself. So this is definitely a thumbs down for me. So I say pass. But I tell you what I didn't pass on is watching one of my favorite bands this week. We celebrated our anniversary, my wife and I's anniversary early, by seeing the Smashing Pumpkins performing at the amphitheater here in Franklin. And
oh, wow. So
yeah,
you saw them live. I was expecting you to say that you were it was a documentary or a live concert film or something.
Nope. We saw them live and it was amazing. If you love the Smashing Pumpkins, they're one of the great titular bands of the 1990s with so many hit songs, and they've continued to rock out. They've got this new kind of, I would say it's kind of like their version of the Wall kind of concept album, A Tomb, which is out now. I believe it's a double album, and it's amazing. It's a more mature Smashing Pumpkins, but definitely still Smashing Pumpkin sound. The band was great. We went backstage and met the guitar player. Didn't have a chance to talk to Billy Corgan at all but I think he's a brilliant writer and just such a great person, and just kind of exchanged looks backstage and just seemed like a really nice guy. But it was really great, Dave. So if you get a chance to see them on this tour, I feel that if I have an opportunity to see a band live that I want, I'm going to go out there and do it, because you never know if these bands, something will happen to them. So, well,
Aljon, I'm not a big person for concerts.
Yep.
But when I do go to a concert, it's usually a killer one. Like, I did the Rolling Stones 50th tour.
Yep.
I've seen, Jefferson Starship or Jefferson Airplane or whatever you want to call them.
Yep.
I've seen
Billy Joel,
Fleetwood Mac, Billy Joel, Elton John. But, that's over, 40 years. Paul Simon,
sure.
Paul McCartney. Yeah. But I really don't go to concerts very often.
Yeah. But you know what, though? It's those moments that you take with you. You get the experience. Yeah. You get to see some of your favorite bands. And since you're a huge Beatles fan, and I saw the Beatles post you made earlier, it's just great to see some of your favorite bands. And like I said, I love the bands of the 90s, and this is one of the biggest bands. So great show.
By the way, I did see The Who at the Hollywood Bowl.
Are you rubbing it in, Dave?
that was a good show.
Wow, my foot hurts from me dropping all those names. But that's awesome. And it's great. Like I think one of my favorite concerts I've ever been to was Fleetwood Mac and the reunion tour that they did before Christine McVie passed. And
that was the one I think I saw that tour, and that was I saw them at the Anaheim Pond.
Yeah, what a great venue. It's a good venue. Yeah, so get out there if you can and support live music, support musicians. So definitely very cool.
There you go.
All right, now, and from there we go into
Skull Rock Podcast, ripped from the headlines. It's Skull Rock Podcast headline news.
Well, Dave, the D23 Destination D event is happening right now, or has happened, and there's some great, great news happening. But I will say this to preempt all this is that I saw some of the live stream, and the Disney sentiment overall for just your average person has kind of turned for Bob Iger. It went from being great before he left the company, like Bob is awesome, to Bob, what are you doing? Pay your actors, pay your writers. And I think he needs to get out of that mess. That's for sure.
Listen, Iger's he's got a tough road ahead of him over the next year to turn this ship. I mean, he's really been putting out one fire after another. I still have total confidence in that he's going to turn it and get things back to where they should be at the Walt Disney Company. So, I'm not going to jump on that bandwagon. I think he's a great leader, and he's somebody he's going to get the job done.
All right. Well, I've been a Bob Iger supporter for a while and read his book and have tremendous respect. So I'm hoping he can bring the company back to its former glory.
I'm not hoping. He's going to.
He's going to. There you go, Dave.
He's going to do it.
There you go.
Okay.
So details have come out about the new the Avengers campus at Disney California Adventure. It's going to be a multi-themed universe ride for the multiverse. Dave, did you know about this? That big Avengers building? They're turning it into a brand new Marvel multiverse ride.
Where's this going?
This is going to be over there in Disneyland, over California Adventure, the new Disney Avengers campus. That big building is going to be opening up to be a multiverse-themed ride, where you join the heroes of the Marvel Cinematic Universe to defeat King Thanos in the future.
Right.
And apparently there's going to be a big vehicle that'll take people down, so I think there's going to be that pre-show. People can ride this kind of Wakanda vehicle, it looks like, into a timeline, a different time stream, and you get to fight against different villains. So that looks to be really cool there at Avengers Campus. So that big building is going to be put to use. And then big changes announced for D23 in 2024. Yes, they announced that D23 is going to be coming back at Anaheim August 9th through 11th. And it's going to be called, of course, the D23, the Ultimate Fan Event.
Wow,
and,
so they've moved it back into August
they've moved
instead
it back
of September.
into, yep.
I think there was a lot of blowback for the September dates.
Yeah, that was not good because the kids were already back to school or something like that. So it's like,
I think they're going to have a bigger showing doing it the 9th to the 11th.
Yes, so the official kickoff will be at Disneyland on August 8th. Of course, it's a big ticket event. Everybody needs to go out there. We've done it in the past many, many times. So this will be separately ticketed event. Of course, it goes on sale now in spring of 2024. So that's really big news that the event is kind of shifted back.
Cool.
Now, bigger news, Disney drops most claims in a lawsuit against Ron DeSantis over Florida special district deal. Dave, this is something we saw coming a mile away. They're putting it to bed.
Well, not completely. They when they filed the suit, they threw a big net out, and I think now what they've done is they've narrowed it down to what they know they're going to be able to win.
Oh, okay, I see.
All right, so they're not dropping it all. They've dropped a number of things that they were going after DeSantis for, but they're still going to court.
It's not over.
Happening.
It's not over until I say it's over.
It's not over until it's over.
All right. So speaking of Iger, Disney's Wildest Ride, Iger, Chapek, and the making of an epic secession mess. And Dave, this article coming to us from CNBC talks about the comings and the goings of Bob Chapek and the reintroduction of Bob Iger and the challenges therein. So what is your big takeaway of this? Because there's a lot of talk about
this was a very lengthy, in-depth article that was very well researched on CNBC. And it really tells the full story of this whole mess with Chapek flaming out and Iger coming back. And it's a great read for anybody who really wants to know what went on behind the scenes.
I see. All right. Very cool. So please check that out for sure. We've been talking about this ad nauseum here on the show, but we'll continue to keep tabs on it. Speaking of Disney, Charter hit with a class action lawsuit over Disney carriage shutdown. Like a lot of people in my parents and my in-laws neighborhoods, they have no ABC because of this. Dave, what's the latest and greatest from this drama of ABC not
Well,
being on?
this is a inflection point. This is a moment where pay TV bundles have to change in order for them to continue to compete with streaming services. And Charter, which owns Spectrum, is digging their heels in, and so is Disney. There's a lot of finger pointing. These carriage disputes where a channel goes dark usually for a day or two and then it's back on. This one's lasting longer because it is a pivotal moment with the pay TV bundle TV channels, the cable services. They have to figure out a new way to be relevant and to continue to make money. So that's what's happening here. And I suspect that this will resolve itself. It's just taking much longer. And I think it's going to hurt Disney more than it hurts Charter Spectrum. The CEO of Charter has already said that they're prepared to just walk away and not have Disney on their pay TV bundles. So, it'll play out over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I already got the notice that my Disney Plus plan is going to change and increase in price. So I've got to go back in and figure out which version of Disney Plus I'm going to get. Plus, I already have ESPN and Hulu bundled with that. So who knows what's going to happen. Jeremy Renner's Mayor of Kingstown is renewed for season 3. This is one of the hit shows of the streaming service. So, Dave, what do you say about that? I mean, Jeremy Renner returning.
Yeah, I love Mayor of Kingstown. It's a great show. I watched both seasons on Paramount Plus, and the fact that it's renewed for season 3 was great to see. When I read the article, they actually had known that they were renewing it many months ago, but hadn't announced it because of Jeremy Renner's accident.
Yes,
and they wanted to make sure that he was healing properly and on the road to recovering from that horrific accident. I mean, he broke over 30 bones in his body.
I am so pleased, and it makes my heart warm to know that Jeremy Renner's okay, that he's recovering, but that he can return and keep on thrilling audiences with his work like Mayor of Kingston. So I'm very happy about it, and congratulations. And Jeremy, we wish you just continued health, good health. This seems to be a long time coming, Dave. Danny Masterson from that 70s show sentenced to 30 years to life for the raping of 2 women. There's no other genteel way to put this. He had 3 counts of that assault in 2020 and was also denied a new trial and faced prison term up to life in prison. Wow, Dave. I never would have thought that someone like this, like an actor in this beloved TV show, would be a predator like this. And lo and behold, here he is. So,
hey,
sad
you
day.
Do the crime, you're going to do the time.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
absolutely. In May, a jury of 7 women and 5 men found Masterson guilty of the crime that he did back in 2003. And yeah, I'm not even going to get into the meat and potatoes of this, but justice is being served.
Yeah, there's probably going to be an appeal on this, but it will be interesting to see how this plays out. But he's going to jail.
Yeah, good. Go to jail.
Yeah.
Winnie the Pooh, you sent me this, Dave, and I just shook my head. As our listeners know, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, that I saw, the abomination that was Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey on Amazon, has a sequel, and they have a first look with images revealed. Currently in production, this film is a follow-up to the micro-budget British slasher that cost about $100,000 to make and earned $5.2 million globally. That's a success in my book, but the movie stinks, and the original movie stunk. And when you sent me this, I think I said this movie's going to be a flaming hot piece of garbage. I can't.
Yeah, listen, I have no interest in seeing a film like this, but you saw the first one.
I saw it. I saw it. So you and our
had to
listeners
send
did.
this to you because I laughed when I saw it.
Of course, and you immediately thought of me, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. You see, I know how this works. So I mean, I may just be a glutton for punishment, but maybe I'll see it again, just so I could say I saw the two films.
I'm relying on you to see it,
Okay,
so you can
well,
tell our listeners what you think.
Yeah,
of it.
that's great. I feel like you're calling me out on a bet here. Like this is a bad thing. Like I bet you won't smell that. Oh yeah, I'll smell it. All right, it smells gross. Hey, so a lost Star Wars X-wing fighter. We were talking about X-wing fighters earlier. Shows up for auction decades after going missing. From the Hollywood Reporter, this model was discovered in a box as friends prepared for the auction of the Oscar-nominated model maker Chris Jen's collection. Bidding starts at $400,000.
I think there'll be fierce bidding for this, don't you?
Yes.
From the hardcore Star Wars fans.
Yes, absolutely. This is being billed as the missing X-wing, part of the collection of Oscar-nominated model maker Greg Ginn. It'll be sold at Heritage Auction October 14th through 15th in Dallas, starting at $400,000. It was built, of course, by Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, of course, the effects house that George Lucas started. And this is Red One. This is the leader of just 4 hero models.
Yeah.
That, of course, Red One was one of the 5, and of course, Red 5 was Luke Skywalker. So this is Red Leader's X-wing. I can't believe it. How awesome is this? After all these years?
What's interesting is that and I didn't know this, but the model shop and ILM were down in Los Angeles in the San Fernando Valley.
That's right.
Back then, before they moved up to Marin County.
That's right.
And so this apparently just got boxed up by that model maker and tucked away.
I
think now, 40 years later or whatever, he's passed away and his collection is going up for auction.
Isn't that unbelievable? Unbelievable.
It's really something else. I think it's fantastic.
I wonder what other treasures.
I love it when something as in, an important artifact from a seminal movie becomes found.
Yeah. And people go nuts over Star Wars models and Star Trek models that just get uncovered that were part of the original production because people, I mean, those are the biggest tentpole franchises around, like James Bond. I mean, of course, people want that. Speaking of big tentpole franchises, Godzilla TV series Monarch Legacy of Monsters releases the first trailer. The legendary MonsterVerse series stars Kurt Russell, Wyatt Russell, and Anna Swy. And I have to say that it's nice to see the father and son Russells in there together. It blew my mind. And of course, I'm a huge Godzilla fan.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say it. Of course, I'm a huge Godzilla fan too.
Yeah, I'm a Kurt Russell fan.
Yeah,
I think Kurt Russell is fantastic.
One of the best actors of our time.
If he's in something, I want to see him.
That's right. I love it. So check out the trailer for Apple TV Plus. This project, of course, stars the father and son of Kurt and Wyatt Russell. It says who play the same character at different ages. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, Wyatt looks so much like his father. It's uncanny. Yeah. The trailer also features John Goodman making a cameo appearance, reprising his role from Kong Skull Island. So I guess this is, kind of a sequel to that, but it looks really, really cool. So be on the lookout for that as it launches a 10-episode series arc globally Friday, November 17th with 2 episodes. Your favorite 2 episodes followed by 1 episode.
Thankfully. And also it's when you watch the trailer, you realize it's a very high budget.
It looks amazing, Dave. It looks like a film. And I love that. So
it looks like a feature film.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. I love Godzilla.
Yeah.
And not so and our regrets for this week. Steve Harwell, the lead singer of Smash Mouth, the founder and frontman of the band, dies at 46. Now, 56. He passes away. Yes. The band, founded in 1994, only retired a couple years ago. One of my favorite bands from the late 90s and early 2000s. They had that hit song "Walking on the Sun." He did that song for Shrek, "I'm a Believer," the Monkees cover. All Star was their biggest hit of all. And unfortunately, it seemed like he had passed away because of liver failure. And yeah, that's very sad, that his life took that turn.
Yeah, it's sad, but it's also infuriating because, he did himself in, alcohol, drug abuse, he abused himself over the years and killed his liver.
Yeah. Yep. It's a shame. It's a shame. Another someone who lived a longer life, equally as big of as a hit maker, was Gary Wright. And I think people will know him from this particular hit song. If I can cue this up, Dave, it's one of our favorites. There we go. Gary Wright passes away at the age of 80 after some battles with health. And of course, he's known for that song Dream Weaver and Love Alive. And I guess I'm trying to see the cause of his death. I mean, he lived a pretty good life.
I think he had Parkinson's disease and some other stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to scroll down, but very, very sad. I mean, I've never got to see Gary Wright, but Dreamweaver is one of the songs that I've had to learn for live band karaoke in over time, and I have played. I mean, I've listened to that song for a long time too. Anytime it comes on, I have to kind of drop what I'm doing and just listen because of its kind of, the way it was produced was just great.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those seminal songs, from what, the 80s?
Yeah, the 70s, I think. It was the 80s?
Late 70s,
Yeah.
early 80s.
Yeah.
I mean it's a song that we've all heard and we all know the words to.
Oh yeah, yes, that's right. So ABC News tells us he'd been battling Parkinson's disease and Lewy body dementia for the past 6 years. Wow, poor guy.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Gary Wright, Steve Harwell, please rest in peace. And now we have our featured interview of the week. Sit back and relax and listen to the controversy. Well, maybe not so controversial, but at least the awesome interview that we have. Enjoy the time with our good friend in part 4. Can't believe it. Dave Spafford, unedited. Here's our language warning right here on Skull Rock Podcast.
Let's do it.
Skull Rock Podcast. Interview time.
Well, Aljon, here we are back again for part 4 of what's going to be, I think, 5-part interview with master animator and incredibly talented individual, Dave Spafford. Dave, welcome back to the Skull Rock Podcast.
Yeah.
Now, Dave, before we get into anything, I got to tell you, the first 3 parts of this interview that have dropped so far are off the charts. I mean, I'm getting a lot of comments and feedback from people, and you and I talked the other day, and it's blowing up for you, isn't it?
Yeah, all these people that I thought were dead are like calling me. It's like it's wonderful. You brought people back to life.
There you go. Well, that's Skull Rock Podcast. We breathe new life into dead people. But also there was a little bit of controversy when because we had aired that story in part 2 about the situation at the Don Bluth Studios on American Tail when you animated that Irish mouse telling the story to the whole crowd of mice. I saw some feedback online from Sylvia, the cleanup artist, who didn't quite remember it that same way. But I wanted you to touch on that for a second, if you could.
Yeah, well, 100%, or I mean, maybe a portion of what I was going off on seemed to come off as her fault. It was the process of the cleanup department because Bluth, didn't put new paper down. They would just take the drawing and use a kneaded eraser and dab it down so that they could lay a line down.
Yeah. And let me just interject here, because just so our listeners know, with the cleanup process at Disney, when you did like the animator did a rough drawing, and when those rough drawings went to a cleanup artist, the cleanup artist would put a rough drawing down on their desk, and they'd put a fresh, clean sheet of paper on top of it. And with their backlight on, they'd be able to redraw the single line that would be representative of the character, so to speak, right?
Right. But at Bluth, our Xerox system was such crap, and any little thing that was on the paper, like the blue underneath the pencil line that you did,
the rough blue drawing.
So they would have to dab it down, and it would still pick up, because we didn't have the budget, I guess, to have a clean piece of paper. And so, a little bit of draftsmanship got lost in the process. And, it's just something that happened. And, I kind of threw the whole thing into it being the cleanup person's fault. But the fault was that we didn't have the budget
to do it the right way, to do it to really the proper way, which was
to do it the way that was set up for Xerox.
Right.
Actually, in the history of animation, there was no such thing as cleanup. Really, it was like touch up. Your assistant would close in the lines so that the ink and paint department knew where to ink to.
Yeah.
So if a line was kind of rough, they would throw in a line to close it up so the inker knew where to go.
And those artists were drawing a lot cleaner than a lot of the artists that followed that were doing very rough drawings, right?
Yeah. If you look at the roughs, or if you look at any animation from a Disney film, like you'd get something out of the morgue like we used to do, you would see the blue drawing or the brown drawing underneath, and then there'd be a kind of a rough line over the top. I mean, it was well done, and it was enough for the ink and paint department the ink and paint department was the cleanup department, really.
Right. When they were inking it onto cells.
Right. And so that was the process. When Xerox came about, every little thing showed up, and they just couldn't deal with it. So they started putting a new piece of paper down and doing a clean drawing. Now if your cleanup people aren't as good a dressman as the animator, then that work is going to suffer. And the work suffered a lot in the time, when most studios were around, because I've always felt, and this will be the next group of emails. I've always believed that most people in animation now were just fans of animation. They weren't artists driven to this art form. They were fans that were smart enough to go, oh, maybe I could do that. But they really didn't have the same chops that, most people who grew up as artists.
Yeah.
I was shocked when, the majority of people that I knew in animation never really drew. I was just going, what? But they were fans of animation. I mean, I remember someone coming to the studio, and I'm going, so what got you into animation? I just love Peter Pan. I just love Peter Pan. I want to be Peter Pan. And I was just going, what? I love Peter Pan. I just want to be Peter Pan. I wanted to get as close as I could to Peter Pan. I'm like going, Dad, the dude wasn't real, man. Wake up. But there were a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
But those people sat in a seat and worked on a film and destroyed some of my work and other people's work, because they didn't have the chops that what it took to be. See, now I'm talking about Disney quality animation, and only. I'm never talking about anything artistic or artsy or any of that. All that stuff is great.
But Dave, I think in the defense of a lot of people that you and I have both worked with, a lot of these folks were good artists.
Yes, you know,
some were better artists than others, but they were all at their core artists for the most part. Whereas, you know, there were people who were in certain positions that were just big animation fans, that they just wanted to be part of the process.
Yeah. And I knew a lot of people who never drew before in their life, who were fans of animation, somehow got a job in it and became very good artists.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a wide spectrum. I sort of felt like the industry was bombarded with an influx of people who weren't
like the classically trained guys from the golden age, really, I think is what you're trying to say. Yeah. Aljon, you wanted to jump in.
Yeah. So, you know, with what you're saying, understand that the budget isn't what it could have been or had. How much of that is actually driven by the time? Because you're in a time crunch. Maybe the studio had to deliver X amount before the release date. You know, certainly time played a factor in the efficiency or the artistic, you know, product, right? You have to be quick.
I got to tell you though, Aljon, I would sit there and say, in this particular instance, this was a financial decision by somebody at Don Bluth Studio to say, we're not going to go through that much paper. Let's preserve some money. But in the reality was that you spent more money having somebody trying to knock down a drawing than laying a fresh sheet of paper down and redrawing.
There you go.
I mean, that's just you know, it's basic economics, you know.
Someone that doesn't know the process dictating what the process should be to save a few pennies, right?
Exactly. It was penny wise, pound foolish, as they say.
Yes.
Right.
I understood.
I mean, there's 1,000 reasons why animation doesn't look or had a hard time competing with the past. A lot of it was budget. I mean, when we left Disney and formed Bluth, I mean, we went into a building that was not designed for animation. That was part of the time frame of working on that film, was building a studio. And it's like, well, we don't have these nice Disney desks anymore. So they had a guy who didn't know anything about animation build desks out of plywood. And all these things were, it just felt like, oh, where am I? This doesn't feel right. You know, everything that we had before, we no longer had. You didn't have the research library that the Disney studio had. There were a lot of things that we suffered with. I mean, it forced us into discovering new things without leaning on anything of the past. That was great. You know, you couldn't go and study some animation from the morgue anymore. We had to go, well, it's just me and my brain sitting in my chair. Close your eyes and dream it, see it over and over, and then do it. Forget being inspired by something. I mean, you could, you know, we still had our little 8mm films and stuff like that, you know, because it kind of was before videotape. It was. We just didn't have we had little super 8mm films that you could buy at Disneyland, you know, it was that kind of thing, you know,
and you could view those frame at a time on a little viewer.
Right.
You know,
and actually that was the most primitive thing about learning with those 8mm films, was that they was 24 frames a second. You could turn that thing. It wasn't video, which was 60 cycles, 30 frames a second.
Right.
Which would have to do what they call a 3-2 pull down, which is every certain frames, the computer has to morph a frame, add a frame to extend it to 30.
Yeah.
So that's why when you see something moving like this in animation, it's 24 frames a second. It's very smooth. In video, anything that was done that you were looking at would go
Yeah, it had a little chop to it.
Yeah. Just like the Star Trek thing at the beginning, the ship at the beginning of Star Trek, that thing's moving. And I always wondered, God, they made a mistake because it was going like that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It was because they shot it on film and they transferred it to video, and
And that was it. All right. So listen, the first 3 episodes of our interview so far with you have been fantastic, and they're really gone off the charts. And obviously there's a little bit of controversy, but hey, it's Dave Spafford. There's always some amount of edge to it.
Right.
But after episode 3 last week, we ended with some great stories about Who Framed Roger Rabbit and the Kem Weber animation desk we talked about. But I want to step forward now onto after Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You went on to The Little Mermaid.
Right. When I came back, I was met by John and Ron, and they said, "Hey, we're trying to get this film off the ground. There's no green light on it yet. We're thinking of doing the Under the Sea sequence as a test to show Katzenberg and Eisner." And I had just come off of the piano duo in Roger Rabbit, and so I understood syncopating animation to music.
And you have a musical background.
Right. And so I ended up agreeing to do this test, and they said, "Can you get it done like in a month?" And I was like, going, wow, it's a lot of characters in that. If it's like it is in the storyboard, that's a lot of characters. So I said, look, if I do it here, I won't be able to get it done because everybody's going to come around. It's going, oh, Dave's doing a test on Little Mermaid. What are you doing with their coffee cup? And I just said, can I work at home to get this done? And they went, sure. So I worked at home and cranked that out. It was so much fun. It really was fun. I was like coming up with characters and it was kind of, the storyboards were very vague and the song was great. But it just fell together. It was really fun. And the music part of it was the easiest thing about it. It was, and most of the characters that I were doing were characters that were first time seen in that sequence, like Elizabeth.
And a lot of them were one-offs.
Right.
Yeah.
It would be just characters playing an instrument made out of seaweed or whatever it was. It was cool. And I love working with John and Ron. They were always like, outside of Zemeckis, they were the only professional people that, as far as directors go, that I've ever worked with. They made you feel like, oh yeah, I know, we want you to do this. It's like, great, then I want to do it for you. Where and Zemeckis was the same way. Zemeckis was you'd show him a scene and he'd go, oh yeah. Oh, hey, everybody come here. Oh, that's Bugs Bunny. And you're like going, just go on to the next scene. You're like going, what?
So he wasn't hemming and hawing. He knew what he wanted. And when he saw it, it was like, okay, I love this.
He didn't have to prove to me that he was a director.
Yeah.
He had that reputation,
Yeah.
Here he is. He's doing this film. He wants it right. And if you show him if you give him what he asked for, boom, you are done.
Yeah.
And that was like, oh, I'm not used to this. I'm used to showing someone a scene and they go, oh yeah, how about, he comes in that door with a cup of coffee and he sets it down. Now that I'm seeing this, it's like, oh, hey, oh, I got it. He comes through that door and then he doesn't set the cup of coffee down. And you're like, hey, you idiot. You told me to have him come through that door and set the coffee down. What has changed? Did I inspire you because you couldn't see it before and now you can? It's like, read the storyboards and get it in your head there.
Yeah. Yeah, we've all worked with some directors who just hemmed and hawed and never really could make up their mind. And if if you look at something and it's right, there's no reason to give a note. You just go, yeah, exactly. That's it. That it's working. It looks great. Move on. Yeah, right?
Exactly. And to me, that was everything. You get someone feeling good about like, oh, I just did a good scene. It does something to somebody, and then you go back and knowing that I don't have to go back and rework that thing because I put all my best thoughts into it the first time.
Yeah. And it's demoralizing as an animator, I think, to have to constantly go back in and rework scenes. I mean, it's just, and especially after you follow the direction that was given to you. When they say this is what I want, and you come back with here's what you told me you wanted, and then they say, yeah, but now I want something different. You're like, and
you're going, that was a week and a half.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, that's a 33-foot scene. It's like, what, you idiot.
So now you animated, you roughed out the under the sea sequence. What happened next?
Handed that in. It worked great. They were very happy with it. They inked and painted it, put it to the soundtrack, showed it to everybody, and they got the idea of what these two guys were talking about, and it was a smart move,
Yeah.
See, that's those guys, John and Ron. That's why they lasted so long, and they're still cool.
Yeah.
Great respect for those guys.
And what'd you do? You obviously they made the movie. I worked on it. You worked on it, but you worked on it for the entire time. No.
I worked on it. I ended up doing. After that, I went on to do the title sequence, and so I was just getting ready to go do that, and I was walking to my room, and Howard Ashman came up to me and he goes, "You're doing the title sequence, right?" I said, "Yes." And he goes, "I've changed the song." He goes, "I've introduced all of the characters in the opening, so we don't have to do it later." Mm-hmm. And so he goes, here's a rough cassette of the music. It's totally different from what you have, but it's better. Mm. And I went, "Great." And he goes, "Sorry, but it won't work with the boards that are already done." And I went, "Even better, because I didn't do the boards and I'd rather do them myself." And so I was like going, this is great. So I was going back to my room. On my way to my room, one of the producers, it's probably safer to not say names, stopped me and said, "How much footage are you going to get out this week on the title sequence?" And I said, "None." And she goes, I got to put down something. And I went, "Okay, put down 50 feet. 50 feet, that's a lot." "Are you going to do 50 feet? "No, but it's a good number. You'll look good. And when I don't come in, I am the one who failed. And I don't mind explaining why." Howard Ashman changed the thing, I have to storyboard it, animate it, clean it up, ink and, there's going to be all this stuff that has to be done. It's like, well, no, first they have to record the song.
Yeah.
And we have to track read it. Then I storyboard it and animate it and, and she just went, I can't put that down. I can't do that. I said, "Well, what do you want me to say?" She goes, "I need sort of a realistic number of how much animation you're going to get out this week." I said, "Okay, put down 5 feet. That's 2 feet more than the average person here does a week."
Right.
"Okay, so you're going to do 5 feet." "No, I can't. The song hasn't been recorded yet. No animation could be done." It's like, this isn't me making these decisions. It's just a fact. Howard came up to me and said, "Hey, can you do this?" And I was fine with that, but I cannot tell you how much footage is going to happen this week.
And there was some of these production people were new to animation. They didn't really know the process.
Right. Well, in fact, everybody that became head of the animation department back in those days came from other places and didn't know what animation was.
Yeah.
The only thing they knew is they didn't really like it. And it was a stepping stone to live action.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I always felt.
Yeah.
It's like, you're hating this.
I think initially some of those folks may not have loved it and were looking at it as a potential stepping stone to something else. But I do think some of them eventually really got it and really understood the process. But it took a while.
Right.
You remember back in those days, it was always great to see some newbie in a production management position, like towards the end of the schedule when things were really hectic and we were all doing overtime. The blood would drain out of their heads because they just thought we were never going to make the
they didn't know how to problem solve.
Yeah, we were never going to make the release date. How could we make it? There's so much work left to do, So
yeah.
That was always fun to watch.
Well, and then they got smart and then they started putting people with animation talent into those positions.
Yeah.
I know even you were producing for a while, weren't you?
Well, I moved up into visual effects supervision and then I became a producer and a creative director and things like that. And I understood the entire process and I knew how to get things done efficiently.
Yeah. That's the course it's supposed to take.
Yeah.
Is someone who comes from it, understands it, it's always been a problem in animation, people skipping the in-between section, going from
the fundamentals, really skipping the fundamentals.
Yeah. It's always been a problem. It's always been a problem. And
it's still, and by the way, no surprise, it still is. Right. I continue to hear stories on a regular basis of people in quote, leadership positions, producing and stuff like that, who are making decisions only to like 4 or 5 months later have to redo stuff, the right way.
The secret to animation is to instill into the person that they're doing the right thing, to make them feel like, I'm doing the right thing. Then next thing you know, they're working after work. You walk by the room and you're going, oh, what are you doing here? It's like it's 11 o'clock. They're not getting paid overtime. They're doing it because someone went, wow, that's fantastic. Oh, I can't wait. Oh, the next scene's going to be great. I can't wait to see it.
But that's the sign to me of a true artist. Is that you start working on something and you get into that zone, and you know what I'm talking about, Dave. You get into that zone and you just keep going until you feel like you're done for the day. You're not watching the clock to hit 5 so you could run out the door. You're loving what you do and you're passionate about it, and you're just going to do it as long as you can do it in one sitting before you say, okay, I'm done for today. That's what it boils down to. Yeah.
And anytime someone alters that way, it just becomes tedious and then all of a sudden it becomes something that you hate, and the majority of things that I've worked on has been like, oh man, it's like I'm in hell because I've been working on this scene for forever because someone keep changing, and then you get, it's like, we're going to do this. Well, that's what you told me. Yeah. But they changed the storyboards.
Yeah.
We had some other ideas on story, and it's like the whole idea when Disney ran his studio was the storyboards were there to flesh out an idea, to see if it works amongst people who understand looking at drawings that aren't moving.
Right.
And so when you have animation storyboards going and everybody's in the room and they're laughing and they get it, it's done.
Yeah.
You don't change it. Once the boards are approved, you move on. But now everybody, they'll go, you know what, it's not working, but let's re-storyboard it. Let's do this. well, it wasn't working before. You weren't ready when you threw it into animation, but everybody's got to get things going. It's like, it's always been a problem.
Yeah.
There's a lot of problems with animation.
So what happened with the title sequence of Little Mermaid?
Well, okay, let me see. So what happened is I went back to my room. She went to the heads of all departments and said I was out of control. And they called me in. I explained it to everybody, and I'm going, tell me how to deal with this differently. What is the answer that I should have given to her? I said, I even asked her, what do you want me to say? And I'll say it.
Yeah.
And I'll take full responsibility if I don't come up with this footage that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
It's like
how are you going to do footage that you can't do because they haven't recorded the song and there's no storyboard yet?
So what happened was Peter Schneider ended up putting me in a warehouse on the far side of Imagineering. It was the
Hart Street warehouse.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. It was like, and now there was no air conditioning. There were no rooms in there. It was a building with a bunch of chrome furniture, all piled in a pile in the middle of the thing. It's like the warehouse guys were having soccer games with furniture and forklifts. It was that kind of thing. And I was just sitting in there. I was just boiling, and I'm like, "Oh, okay. So what am I going to be doing here?" And they're going, well, we're going to put you in this thing called special projects.
Yeah.
Well, special projects was my idea when we came off of Roger Rabbit. I'm going, hey, everybody's going to want shorts done from these films, from this film. And I think we should make them. And so they made it sound like it was like this thing that they were giving me, but it was my idea. And so I went on to doing that. And then after I had storyboarded a short with Roger Rabbit, they said, "Hey, we're gonna bring some guys in to help you." And I went, "Cool." And they, it was a bunch of guys, and all of a sudden they came in. But what they had done was they got together on the weekend and storyboarded their own idea. And so I just kind of went, you know what? This is just. What am I doing here? Why am I doing this? And then there was a couple of
the 63rd Academy Awards. You did some animation for that little cameo thing. Did you work on that?
Well, it was going to be Roger at the Oscars.
Right.
And so they pulled me off of the shorts. Peter Schneider said, we're taking you off the shorts.
Yeah. He's
still messing with me because first time I met him, I accidentally insulted him. Remember when we came to work one day and they gave us all pieces of paper, stand in line where they had all the cells in a room. And they said, "Oh yeah, you could go in and
for the Little Mermaid cells, right?"
No, Mouse Detective.
Oh, great Mouse Detective. Yeah, they would lay the cells. They would lay the cells out on a conference room table.
Yeah, and
they did it for Little Mermaid. They did it for Mouse Detective. Yeah,
you could take 2 cells out.
Yeah,
and so everybody's obviously going for their cells, and so I'm standing in line, and Peter Schneider stops and he goes, "Oh, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm standing in line." And I had the green piece of paper in my hand, and he goes, "You didn't work on that film." I said, "I know, but they gave me this piece of paper, so I'm
going to take my cells."
So here I am. And actually, I told Matt O'Callahan and Sean Keller, "Hey, when we go in there, pick an extra cell, and I'll walk out with it, and then I'll give it to you." I didn't want the cells.
Sure.
So Peter Schneider goes, "Hey, well, don't take any of the good ones." And I just went, "Do you draw?" And he goes, "No." And I went, "Well, then you're not going to know the difference." And then as he just kind of got weird and took off. And then everybody in line just went, "Oh my God, what did you do? How did you do that?" And I went, "What did I do?" don't you know who that is? I went, no, that's Peter Schneider. He was head of the department. And I went, oh, I just came back.
It's fantastic.
So anyway, he didn't like me. So that's why he was always messing with me. That's why he put me in the warehouse. Yeah. That's why, and then he took me off of the shorts. And then I go, okay, we're going to have you do this commercial for Splash Mountain. And I'm going, great. And with Roger Rabbit, I'm going, great. So it's going to be the Roger Rabbit style and with the shadows and everything, highlights. Yes, great. So I storyboarded up the whole thing, and we went down to Disneyland, and it was this chicken wire mountain.
Yeah, they were just building it.
Yeah, they had the canals going through it.
Yeah.
Logs were going to float in. So we're kind of walking around going, okay, what's going to be here? Oh, this right here is, this is where Brer Bear is in a trap. He's all bundled up. And I said, okay, so I'm taking pictures. We get back, we have a meeting, and they went, all right, how long is it going to take you to get this done? And it was the same thing again. I'm like going, well, they're going, how much are you going to be able to get done this month? And I'm going, none. They're going, well, we can't have that. I'm going, well, they haven't built the ride yet. So this is live action with animation over the top. Once we get the live action done, we make photostats and then we animate over the top.
Yeah.
Oh, this commercial is supposed to come out 2 months before the ride does. I'm going, I get that. It would be fantastic for it to come out 2 months before the ride, but the ride's not done yet.
Yeah.
They lost their minds over that. And all of a sudden now, there he goes again. He's being difficult. I'm not being anything. I'm just telling you how stupid this thing that you're telling me, how stupid it sounds. It's like, it's crazy. It's like, it just doesn't make any sense. And so it's like,
how can you do the animation if you don't have live action plates to do the animation to, if that's the concept for the commercial?
Exactly. And so all of a sudden, then that turned into he's too difficult to work with. And so I ended up sitting in my room just going, man, what is good? You know what? They're baiting me. They're trying to piss me off so I leave with all this absurd stuff. All right. Do I stay and fight these guys with stupid shit like this? Or do I just go and do something different? It's like there's a whole world out there. I don't need to be here at this place that's trying to relive the past. I'm just, and I piled up everything that was in my room in a neat little pile, everything that was theirs. The desk I had in my room was mine.
Yeah.
And I called Kent Holiday and said, hey, bring your truck over. I said, I need to move my desk. Oh, okay. He comes over. We move my desk, go home. I'm at home for like 2 weeks. And I get a call and they're going, where are you? What room are you in now? We've gone everywhere. We don't know where you're at. And I said, I'm at home.
2 weeks later, they didn't even know you were out of the studio.
Yeah, I'm at home. And they're going, well, what? And I just went, look, this doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so that was that. I had stepped out of the house and was now thinking, all right, now what am I going to do? Patty Conklin calls me and she goes, hey, I heard someone saying that you might be starting your own studio. I'm like, yeah, out of necessity.
Was that really when you started your own studio?
Yeah.
Because I thought it was later than that, but it was that early.
Right after, it was like 91.
91, 92. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. For some reason, I had it in my head that it was more like mid to late 90s that you started your own.
Right after a couple little odd projects.
Yeah.
After Little Mermaid. And I was gone before Little Mermaid was finished.
Right.
But I had been working on the odd little projects on the side because they had taken me off of Little Mermaid.
Right.
And yeah, so
what was the first project you did for your company?
Well, Patty had said, look, the only reason I'm calling is because we keep getting people calling us to do Roger Rabbit commercials and, hey, we want to do our commercial. And they go, and she's telling them, we don't do commercials for people.
Right.
And then she goes, have these people that just keep on calling. Do you mind if I just give them your number? Would you want to do a commercial? And I went, sure.
Yeah. And
it was some Kraft cheese commercial from, no. The first one was this, it was a Nomura Bank. It was a Japanese bank commercial.
With Disney characters?
No, had nothing to do with Disney.
Oh, okay.
This was just a company that was going to Disney going, oh, will you do some animation for us?
Ah, gotcha.
And they're going, no, sorry, we don't do animation for other companies. And so they called me up and they go, we've been kicking this commercial around. We've had it at several studios and people aren't doing, they're just not doing what we want. It's not coming off right. The director's going, they're not doing it right. So you're our last hope for this. It's like someone said, hey, we'll try this guy there. He just started a studio. And so, and I'm like going, I don't know what to charge for a full commercial with live action and animation. I'm just like going, man, and the guy goes, we just took it away from a couple studios and we're kind of running out of time. We've spent a lot of time. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll do it for $5,000 less than what anybody else said that they would do it for. Right. So whoever was the lowest, put me $5,000 lower than that. And let's just do this thing. And they said, you can do this for $147,000. I would have done it for $7,000.
Yeah, and you got to remember though. I mean, we're talking 1991, 1992.
Yeah, and commercials were big.
Yeah, and they had big budgets, and that actually was a big budget because you were talking a 30-second commercial.
Yeah,
yeah. So that was a healthy budget, but so you also had like an 8-week schedule.
I think we had 2 weeks.
Really? 2 weeks?
They were in a panic because they had an air date.
Yeah, and they bought the airtime, so that's what they were up against. Right. Yeah,
and so the studios couldn't deliver it, so they're like going, "We're in a panic." And I kind of said, this was my reason for dealing with the panic. I said, "I'll do this for you." Everybody else said it was going to take 3 to 5 months. I'll do it for you in 2 weeks. But you have to leave me alone. You have to not come over. Just let me live and breathe this thing. And me and my studio will do this thing.
And when you said me and my studio, it was really you. It was you yourself, and I.
Yeah,
right?
me and Debbie. Yeah. And so, but then it was like, going, that's a hell of a budget. I said, I'll hire some of my friends.
Yeah.
Help out, and then we can kind of make it look good instead of just super rushing this out. I mean, I could have done it, but it's all on ones, and it was a turtle in a boat on water. Oh God, it was a very challenging piece.
But they had the live action already shot?
No, we had to shoot that.
You had to shoot the live action.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we did that in a day, and the whole thing was kind of scary.
Yeah.
And so I ended up hiring a handful of guys, and we knocked it out. And
that was the birth of Spaf Animation.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, and we were like going, God, this is what commercials make. Oh my God, this is going to be, we're like going, oh God, we'll just do a couple commercials a year and just
goof off the rest of the time.
Yeah, and just have a great time traveling. And but then all of a sudden the gates opened up and everybody heard that we were there, and we started doing. Man, we worked on everything.
You were doing stuff for MTV, and then Warner's reached out to you. You worked on Space Jam with your company, am I right? Did they farm out a portion of it?
Yeah. Then we did one sequence
in Space Jam.
Yeah, and then we started doing sequences for Disney.
Right.
Believe it or not, after all the bullshit, they came around. And I'm not even sure if Peter Schneider even knew that we were doing it.
Yeah.
Or that they were doing it. But they called up and said, hey, would you want to do a musical sequence in Pocahontas? And I'm going, yeah, okay. And so I had about 18 guys at that point.
And they were all good animators.
They were all ex-Disney people.
Right.
And so I ended up, we got into this thing, and again, I learned a lesson. It's like, always say, well, I don't know, it's like kind of make them feel like you're not going to do it. But then I tell you what, I'll do it if no one comes over to the studio to see what we're doing. I will, on certain scheduled things, bring it to you. You can ask all the questions you want. Look at the rough. We'll play it that way. And they went.
You just didn't want people hovering over you.
I didn't want anybody interrupting my guys.
Right.
Because here's after working with Zemeckis, this is how I worked everything. I'd have a scene for an animator. I'd have the layouts and everything done. I'd say, all right, this is what's happening. This is what I need you to do. He has to do this. He has to start here, go through this, pick up that over there, walk over there, and then hook up with the next scene.
Right.
If you do it right, if you do it with those things involved, I don't care what you do in the scene or how you do it. Just hit those marks and you're going to do it once. I said, I'm not going to allow you to do it twice. If it doesn't look right, you are going to have to live with it.
Yeah.
I said, this is an enormous project and we've got to do this right. And I said, if down the road we end up getting these things that aren't working, then we'll fix it, and that's the idea of everybody going, wow, I just have to do this once. And if I do a good job, I get to go to the next scene. And every one of my guys had never had that. But that's how Zemeckis did it. He got you all enthused and to the point where, man, you were willing to do overtime for nothing.
Yeah, but he gave you all the information you needed to do the scene correctly. And if you followed his direction, the scene was approved.
Right. If he's telling the actor, which the animator is, this is what you have to do. If you do it, you can do it however you want it. And he just left it. You were done.
Yeah.
And so we end up doing that. The momentum and the amount of footage that you could do on Roger Rabbit, even though it was on ones. Yeah. And it was like insane with the cameras turning and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It still worked.
Yeah.
I shaped my whole studio after the experience with Zemeckis.
Well, that's awesome to hear that. Yeah. Now you went on to Space Jam and you did a sequence. Did those rules apply for that? Did you say, I'll do the sequence, but don't come to my studio and we're only going to do this And
what was good about that situation was I had already let them know how much I knew about this process. When they called me in to work on Space Jam, I met with Joe Pitka.
Yeah, I remember him.
Now, Joe Pytka was the guy who thought he was.
He was the director. He was the director, wasn't
the
he?
live action director.
Yeah.
But he loved the whole idea of Sam Peckinpah. Treat everybody like shit. Come in and scare the fuck out of everybody. He was one of those guys. And so we're having this meeting, and he's like got his feet up on the table, and and just talking to me like I'm some piece of shit. And they showed me the sequence, and it was Michael Jordan in a green room with a bunch of guys in green suits playing basketball. And so this guy walks in front of Michael Jordan with the basketball, bouncing it. And they're going, that's Tweety. Tweety will be where bouncing the ball. And I went, well, what about it's the guy in the green suit's completely wiping out all of Michael Jordan. Oh no, that's green screen. It'll disappear. I said, yeah, it will. You'll get rid of the green, but so are Michael Jordan's legs, because he's behind the guy in the green suit on this strip of film. I said, the only way that this can be done is if we make Tweety really big and he's bouncing. We'll have to get rid of we're going to have to animate the basketball, because we can't use the guy in the green suit. It's basketball. Mm-hmm. It's too far away. It's too close to Michael Jordan. So we'll have a basketball that's close to the thing, and Tweety will go by. That's the only way you can do that scene.
Yeah, the scale was off. He didn't understand that.
Yeah, he didn't understand that anytime green got in front of Michael Jordan, that it's gone, unless you can fill that space with a character.
Yeah.
But if it's a tiny character and the green guy is huge, he's wiping out everything. Anybody that's live action. And Joe Pytka's going, look, you idiot, it's green screen. It'll all drop out. And I went, okay. You guys have a great time. I don't have anything to do with this. And I left. We walked out. Yeah. Me and my rep walked out. And a month later, the producer calls me up and he goes, you were right.
Was that Ron Tipp?
Yeah. Who I dug. I thought he was great.
Yeah, Ron Tipp was terrific. He was a friend of mine.
I loved him.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a good producer
and a funny guy.
Yeah. He goes, you're right. He goes, is there any way we can fix this? And I'm going, yeah, we'll have to cut a couple scenes out. We'll have to rearrange it. We're going to have to make another game, but it can be done. We're going to have characters a little bit different in scale.
It's strategically placed. I mean,
so we worked on that. We grabbed that sequence specifically because they couldn't figure out how to fix it.
Sure.
I said, just let me have it. We'll make it work. And, I had some good guys at my studio. I had Tom McGrath, Dave Wasson, Shane Zalvin. I had a handful of guys that were just like, just going, okay, here's what we got to do. We got to make this work. And we did. It was, it ended up being fun. I mean, Joe Pytka was gone. I think they fired him in the end. I think they took him off the film, and because he was gone when we were putting together the live action with the animation, he was gone.
He still got director credit.
Yeah. But yeah, that was kind of a nightmare.
Wow.
And what was funny was my rep, this is like, so we're discussing this whole thing and I'm going, yes, it can be fixed. And they're going, well, what do you want to do this? And my rep just throws out a number that I about fell out of my chair.
That's good though.
Yeah. And Ron just goes, slams his hand on the table and he goes, done. Give him what he wants, and nobody go over to the studio or bug him or do anything. Just let these guys do what they do. And we went back and we did it. And we saved a sequence that was really in trouble. in the end, we did we broke it down so that it could work. And then, but it was kind of boring. And I wanted to, there was another sequence that was about cleaning up the, creating the gymnasium.
Yeah.
And I was just like going, let us do that with, it's like 1 billion characters. It's like, you're going to want these characters to look like these characters. They're all in, a lot of them aren't in the rest of the film, for very long. And so we ended up doing that, and we jumped off of the game. We worked it out so that it could be done. Bruce Smith and those guys, they took that thing and made it sing. Yeah. And I didn't want to have anything. I didn't really want to have anything to do with it. It was like we proved them wrong, and then we ended up working on another sequence.
So I think this is a good place for us to stop right now, Dave. I think we're bumping up against time. So I want to say thanks for being back for a fourth time, the Skull Rock podcast. And we're going to see you next week. As the crowd goes wild, we're going to see you next week for part 5 and maybe wrap it up. I don't know. I'm having such a good time hearing your stories. We may just keep going for the rest of the year. Who knows? But anyway, Dave, I'll see you next week. Thank you.
We'll start our own union.
Your attention, please. Now loading on track number 1 for a trip around Walt Disney's Magic Kingdom.
Skull Rock Podcast.
All aboard.
Your main street to the world of Disney.
He's a straight shooter, and I like it. And I really like the authenticity of Mr. Dave Spaffer. Dave, an unprecedented number 4 interview. I can't believe it.
No, it was fantastic talking with Dave, and really, spending the time to hear some of these stories behind the scenes on Little Mermaid and how he got Spaf animation off the ground. I mean, just really, really terrific.
I love it. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I believe we have part 5 getting ready to unleash on yourselves next week. It should be an amazing show. It's unprecedented. What a great guy, Dave Spafford. And I'm looking forward to just kicking back and listening to this awesome interview. And it's going to be great. So next week, that's what you'll get. And then if you love this show, don't forget to subscribe wherever you find podcasts. We're on all the major podcast platforms, wherever you find us. Apple, Amazon, Spotify, iHeartRadio, our streaming partner, Sorcerer Radio. Thank you so much at srsounds.com. You can also send us those emails. We'd love for you to do that. Dave at skullrockpodcast.com or Aljon at skullrockpodcast.com. Be sure to leave us those 5-star reviews and follow us on Facebook, X/Twitter. We're all individually on LinkedIn as well, so be sure to check that out. And be sure to check out me on Instagram, Aljon Go, and also our sister show, Dining at Disney, with me and my wife, Kristen. Dave, it's all you.
Well, Aljon, as always, I just want to let our listeners know that my House of the Future book is out. The people who ordered the author-signed copy early are getting theirs and have been getting them over the past week and into this week. So if you're interested, you can go to the oldmillpress.com for an author-signed copy. And my Nightmare Before Christmas book apparently is down at the Destination D in Orlando.
Wow.
It doesn't release until September 26th. And they have them down in Orlando, and I still haven't gotten my copies yet. That's craziness.
How's that possible?
Anyway, with that, go out and have a fantastic week, everybody. As always, be good to one another, and we'll see you back here next Monday on the Skull Rock Podcast.
I'm Aljon Go, co-host of the Disney List podcast, as heard on Sorcerer Radio, as well as Skull Rock Podcast, here with my wife, Kristen. Hello.
Hello.
You are an earmarked agent who books Disney travel, vacations for people all the time. give our listeners a reason why they want to give you a call instead of just booking a trip by themselves.
Well, I can do all of the legwork for them. I have expertise. I've been to the Disney parks well over 100 times, so they've got that knowledge at their hand, as well as it saves them time and money.
Where can people get in touch with you so that they can book their next Disney cruise, Disney park trip, Adventures by Disney?
They can contact me at themeparksandcruises@gmail.com.